Hey y'all, I'm Ashley, and before we had our son, we struggled with infertility for 6 years and ended up having to do IVF to conceive. So, through that, we had a lot of ups and downs, obviously, and had to try a lot of different things. And what I always came back to doing was searching YouTube for somebody else sharing their story that had been through what I was going through, that could shed light on the path that was ahead of me. So, I feel like now that I have had success, I can finally share our story and maybe help someone else along the way as well, because I found it so helpful to watch other people. And it can be really awkward to talk about infertility or trying to conceive. And I know there is a lot of people out there that want information, but maybe don't know who to ask, or they don't feel comfortable asking people in their lives. So maybe they're doing the same thing I was. I just didn't know anybody that was going through the same thing. So I was looking specifically for what we were going through. So maybe even that's the case, that you're looking specifically for what you're going through and looking for answers. So this is my little intro video to Sprouting. Sprouting is going to be all about infertility and motherhood, and just hopefully educational as well as entertaining, connecting. That way, you know, we can all work together, because it's obviously difficult and it can feel very, very lonely to be struggling with infertility. So hopefully if you've stumbled across this video, hopefully you find this helpful. For this video, we're just going to talk about bad infertility advice, because as soon as people know you're trying to conceive, they want to give you advice, or at least this is how it went for me. But we got some pretty bad advice. I know that like the biggest thing that we would get advice wise was, it's just not the right time. It will happen when it's supposed to happen, or it's all in God's timing, was all the things that we were told continuously by different people. And I want to say that I don't agree. If we would have continued to wait and just be like, we'll just keep trying the basic way, we wouldn't have our son. There was a 1% chance that we could conceive. And of that 1% chance, there was a higher portion that it would be an ectopic pregnancy again. And so without intervention, we probably wouldn't become parents. But that I don't agree that it's not like, oh, you're taking out of God's hands then by doing IVF. I don't agree with that either, because I think God made it possible for us to do IVF. IVF can't be successful on its own. Like, people go through cycles all the time and still don't conceive. So it still takes intervention. It's still, we prayed through the whole entire process. But we'll obviously be sharing more on how all of that went later. But I definitely still think God's hand was at work, and that is how we have our son. So another piece of advice that people want to give you is their baby making positions, is how I'll phrase that. Yeah, I don't really want, like, if it's somebody close to you, that's fine, but like the random people to be like, oh, well, this is how and where and everything that we conceived our son. And I'm like, first of all, if you know how, when, and where, you ain't baby dancing that much. And if you know an infertile couple, they're baby dancing as much as they can to try to make a baby. So much harder to track than your one time that conceived your child. So just leave that advice to yourself. Don't need to know the position, when, or where. Let's see what other ones. We got a lot. Oh, this is advice for maybe somebody who stumbled across this video and they're more so curious about infertility, and maybe you have an infertile friend and you're trying to connect with them or help them through whatever. Don't ask, whose fault is it? After we lost our first pregnancy and we were trying again, that was one of the first questions we got. Well, whose fault is it? What? There is already so much guilt with infertility. Like, you don't need to ask whose fault it is. Our reproductive endocrinologist on our first visit was like, so we don't do that. It's no one's fault. It takes two to make a baby and things aren't coming together. So we're just working on that. It's no one's fault. So don't ask whose fault it is. Who is that going to help? If you want to know just like basic, so we tried for a year, and then I went to the OBGYN and was like, hey, I've tried for a year, it's not working, because that's like the normal time frame. And so they tested my progesterone and ran labs, and everything came back normal. And so he saw me back in the office, and he's like, hey, well, everything's normal, everything looks great, it's probably a timing issue. So he sent me home with instructions and said, oh, you'll be back, you'll be pregnant in no time. I have no doubts. So I was like, okay, well, since, he's telling me that there's no problem, then we'll just keep trying. And maybe it was our timing. So the timing that he told us was obviously like, take your prenatals as soon as you decide you wanted to start trying, or even of childbearing age, I think is when it's recommended. You can look it up. But take your prenatals, because if you do get pregnant, you want your body to have the support that it needs to give it to the baby. So take your prenatals, baby dance on the 10th, 12th, 14th, and 16th day of your cycle to cover the whole what should be your fertile window. If you want to add like the 8th day and the 18th day in there, why not? It's every other day basically, because the sperm will live for 2 days. So it's every other day to keep fresh sperm. So when you ovulate, they'll be there. And that was like the timing, and taking a prenatal was like the biggest tips that he gave me. And the second tip, or third tip that he said, was for my husband to go get a semen analysis, because that is the easiest thing that you can do if you're struggling with infertility. If you know you're ovulating and you're baby dancing during the ovulation window and you're not getting pregnant, the easiest test that you can do is the semen analysis, because it's cheaper and it's non-invasive, right? So I think for us, it was around like $120 for the semen analysis. He did go down to the fertility clinic to take it. So you could look up ones in your area. I don't even think he actually needed a doctor's order to go do it. We had a doctor's order, but I think you can just call the fertility clinics and get one scheduled. So for a while, he didn't want to go do the semen analysis, because since I had come back and everything looked good, he was like, oh, it's my fault. So like I'm saying, there's already enough blame in infertility. You don't need somebody else asking whose fault it is. So he's like, oh, it's my fault. Like, obviously, if everything's fine with you, then I'm the issue. And I was like, we need to not look at it like that at all, because basically we want to work together to make a baby. We don't want to cause extra stress and extra blame and do all those things. So he prolonged it for quite a while, and finally went and got the semen analysis, and it was normal. So a lot of fret over a test that was going to come back absolutely normal. So we obviously had to continue testing and all to learn what was really going on, but that will be another video. For this one, basic infertility advice, which is prenatal, semen analysis if you're trying, scheduled, and things aren't still working. It's cheap. It's not hard to do. Cheap in the scheme of infertility, I guess is what I'm saying. And then the baby dancing on day 10, 12, 14, and 16. And that was literally, he wrote it in like a doctor's order, which is fun. Doesn't take the fun out of it all, right? So if you're trying, my heart goes out to you. I know it can be absolutely exhausting. Find people that, if that's what works for you, find people that you can talk to. You can join support groups through Facebook. There was one I was in, and then also I really found watching videos helpful. So hopefully, as I share our journey, you can find it helpful as well. So until next time, thanks for watching.